about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Now, a question a lot of fans have, myself included, is whether or not Venom is actually part of the MCU. I mean, let's face it, everyone wants to see Venom square off against Tom Holland with the Marvel Studios stamp of approval. But how plausible is this? Well, according to Sony, it's very plausible. In a recent interview conducted by Variety on Monday, May 29th, Sony Motion Pictures president Sanford Pantich teased that Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be the link between Sony's Venomverse and the MCU. But what if a link has already been established, just hidden in plain sight? From Easter eggs to split-second frames, I believe that there is more than enough evidence to link Sony's Venomverse and the MCU, all from one feature film and 2 trailers. First things first, I want to examine the first Venom film and point out key moments that I think link Venom to the MCU. Many fans, while watching the film, might notice there is no concrete date in sight. If you notice, we don't really know when the film takes place. We don't know what year it takes place in. Now, I believe this is intentional. My running theory is that this takes place during Civil War in 2016. Now, the main reason I believe this is because Venom is based in San Francisco. So all of the events in Venom would have to take place during a time where Ant-Man, who, if you don't know, is the MCU's hero who is based in San Francisco as well, would not have to be in a city. He would have to be out of a city. I initially thought maybe this movie took place during the blip or the 5-year gap between Infinity War and Endgame, but one scene disproved all of that. When Dr. Skirth is taking Eddie to the Life Foundation, she says this:
overpopulation and climate change. These are 2 things that Drake cannot control.
If the film took place during the blip, overpopulation would be non-existent. And for those of you not in the loop, spoiler alert,
Going for the head.
so the only other logical time frame is when Ant-Man is helping Cap during the events of Civil War. Unfortunately, as previously stated, the film never directly says what year it takes place in, even going as far as to change basic email date stamps. But there are minor details here and there that do allude to when this film takes place, such as the phone that Eddie uses is a Sony Xperia E4, which, if you don't know, released back in 2016. And the chat room on Eddie's phone is known as QQ International, or otherwise known as QQ Chats. QQ International is an application that released for Android in 2016 and subsequently exploded, going from 299 million users in 2014 to 899 million active users in 2016 once it was released on Android. And if this movie does take place in 2016, then it makes sense why none of the characters are aware of Spider-Man. Well, all except for one. Venom's end credit scene is amazing. I love the way it alludes to Carnage. It is a perfect rendition of the character, and it is a perfect teaser for what's to come in the second film. That being said, it is a very confusing scene. We don't know why Brock is there specifically, why Cletus asked for him specifically, and why he's so giddy to mess with Brock and get into his head. We also don't get an explanation as to why Cletus is in San Quentin, other than the fact that we know he's a murderer. And I started doing some research on this, and I realized something that blew my mind. Earlier in the film, Eddie and Annie speak about how Eddie got fired from the Daily Globe and was run out of New York.
And I'm sure that they defend many people that you don't deem worthy, but we don't want a repeat of the Daily Globe incident.
Ow, really? Incident? It's not an incident.
Baby, you were run out of New York. I don't want you run out of San Francisco.
No.
In the comics, Eddie got fired from the Globe because he ran a series on these murders that had been happening in New York by the Sin Eater killer, who he falsely identified. This essentially made him a laughingstock in the world of journalism, so it makes sense why he would have to relocate in San Francisco, although in the comics this didn't exactly happen. Now in the comics, he didn't transfer over somewhere in San Francisco, but he also didn't get the symbiote first, so they obviously changed details here and there. So I believe that this exact scenario happened in the movies, except with the Sin Eater killer, it was Cletus Cassidy. This explains why Cassidy is so giddy to see him and even says this to him in the extended end credit.
Hey, you want to be the first to get the scoop, right? No interview of a lifetime for you.
So, I think Cassidy was a big-time serial killer in New York. I think Brock did a series on the murders, eventually falsely identifying him as someone else who it wasn't. Brock got proven wrong, thrown out of the Daily Globe, moved to San Francisco. Then, not too long after, Cletus was apprehended and put into prison in New York, where he was transferred to Ravencroft, which we do see In Venom Let There Be Carnage, in the trailer, we see Ravencroft, which is based in Westchester, New York, then transferred to San Quentin where he would inevitably meet Brock face to face. There is a catch, however. I mentioned how the film heavily mirrors the comics. What I didn't mention was that Spider-Man was the one who caught the original killer. I think it's no different here. Look at the Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer. We see Cletus Cassidy squashing a spider while saying this.
Waiting in the darkness for the rescuer who never comes.
I believe Cassidy was caught after the events of Civil War, while Spider-Man was still trying to prove himself to Stark that he's Avengers material. He was also trying to show himself to New York, and gained confidence in Stark recruiting him. So what better way to show yourself off by capturing a well-known serial killer? Obviously, this could have happened before the events of Civil War. He was doing Spider-Man things before Tony had recruited him. That's a very big possibility as well, and I don't want to rule that out. But I do think if my theory pans out to be true, we will see Carnage in Venom 2 trying to get back to New York to kill the one person who actually put him away, with Venom being the only thing standing between him and Spider-Man. And Venom doesn't know who Spider-Man is because he left New York way before Spider-Man made his debut. Take this along with Amy Pascal saying that Venom and Spider-Man Homecoming take place in the same world that Sony and Marvel are creating.
Those movies will all take place in the world that we are now creating.
As well as the article I showed you earlier. It all just makes sense. It's also worth mentioning that some eagle-eyed fans, myself included, noticed that if you pause the Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer at just the right time, you can see in the newspaper, in a split-second frame, it appears to read Avengers something something Nightmare. Which, in my opinion, that's all the proof I need. Also, it's worth mentioning that this is the exact same layout and design Daily Bugle from the Sam Raimi universe, but that's for another video. Also, I would like to mention that there are very clear connections to Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the Morbius trailer, such as Adrian Toomes, Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes showing up, as well as the mural of Spider-Man with the words murderer spray painted over it. And if you look at Spider-Man No Way Home set photos, you see that people are actually believing Mysterio, believing his lies, so this would make sense to have that kind of a correlation. Also, if you take this and couple it with the fact that Morbius has been confirmed to take place in the universe that Venom takes place in, it's all coming together pretty nicely. As I said last time, this is all my own headcanon and speculation, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. As much as I would love for this theory to be true, it could easily not be. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it made you think a little bit about Venom Let There Be Carnage. And I also hope it got you more excited for that film. Well, more excited than you already were. If you liked this video, please leave a like so I know to make more mini-theory videos. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing so you don't miss any content that I post. Especially if you enjoy Marvel, because I post that kind of content a lot. As always, I am AJ Nerd Freak, and I'll see you later, Nerd Freaks.